Hi, Kathy here from Kathy's Cute Creations. Somehow I've already deleted the beginning of my video, therefore I'm doing it again. I am going to show you how to do the little red squares differently in the pattern that you can download from the Fort Worth Fabric Studio. Pin tucked pinwheel. It's 2 squares. So if you haven't downloaded it, go ahead and get it. And I'm going to show you how to do it even easier than the video for the table runner. All right, let's get started. So here are the fabrics for the blocks, and we're going to work on them first. You're going to take a light and a dark. The 2 on the right are considered the dark, the 2 on the left are considered the light. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip all my dark ones. Let me move that. Just take them. And in case you didn't watch the other video, you're going to take it and you're going to flip it over, and we're going to mark from this end of the fabric down to this end of the fabric. I'm going to show you how to do that real quick here. Make sure that your ruler is long enough to extend from this corner to this corner, and you want it to overlap. And I'm going to make a dashed line from this corner down to this corner, because it's going to be my cutting line. You can make your dashes as big as you want. Hold your ruler down because you're marking your fabric, which is on the bias, and it will want to give on you. So you can see that mark right there. Now we're going to go 1/4 inch from the mark, and we're going to draw a line. So just put it on the line, from the top to the bottom, draw a straight line, just like that. That's going to be the sewing line. Flip your fabric. We're going to do it on the other side now. This is our other sewing line. We're going to get 2 half square triangles out of this fabric. Do this to all 4 of your dark pieces of fabric. Have them put together, right sides together, and I put 2 pins on the right hand side. Now when you cut this out, if you're just following and you're not actually cutting it out, but you're going to wait till the whole video is over, if you do starching, you want to do that at the very beginning with your fabric before you cut it, because of shrinkage. If you don't, and you use water, which is what I use to iron with, then it's not going to affect it. Now let's go ahead and we're going to sew these together. I'm using a 12-inch needle. My stitch length is 2.5. I'm just using white thread. You can use a gray thread if you'd like, depending on your fabric color. Just go slow and steady. You're going right on the line that you marked. Now go ahead and sew them all. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain piece these. Now this is where we cut them. Take your ruler, and if your line was kind of wiggly and squiggly, that's fine. Put it from this corner to that corner, or put it up on the line. Or you can even take your dotted line, like on my ruler here, and just go right up the seam, and you're going to be 1/4 inch from it. And now we have our half square triangle. Just like that. Now we're going to square them up. Go ahead and cut all of yours out, iron them open, and then we're going to square them. And I'm going to show you how to square them if you've never done that before. I'm up here at the ironing board, and I want to show you how to set your seam in case you haven't done that yet. Before you've opened it up, all you do is iron along your seam. Open it up. We are ironing towards the dark side. This is the way you do it. So it went towards this side here, and that's it. Take the next one. You're relaxing this seam, then you're opening it up. I go in the middle to set it, because this is the bias all the way across this middle here, and you don't want any of that to stretch. You want this to be straight so that when you get ready to square it up, there is no curviness in your seam. It will show on your ruler, and it won't be a square then. You'll have to come back to the ironing board and fix that. So I don't really push down until I'm done with my ironing. At the very beginning, it's just lightly on there. And in the middle, and then press, and then outward with it. And if you feel like they're not flat enough, you can go ahead, you can take your mister, water, or you can use Best Press. I would not be using starch at this point. Well, actually you could use starch because we haven't squared off our blocks yet. So even if it did shrink a little bit, it wouldn't make a difference. This is bigger than a 6.5 inch square, and that's what we're going to end up with. Now let's take them over here to the table. I'm using my rotary mat for this. I have a 6.5 inch ruler. I'm putting the 90-degree diagonal right on the seam. And then I'm going to cut. Oops. Looks like I got a couple of scragglies here. And there's the 6.5 inch square. Now I did show on the other video that I did, I showed it doing it with a different ruler. Go ahead and cut out all of your squares, and then when we're done, I'm going to show you how to connect them, and then we're almost finished. When you have them squared up, I've laid them out on top of each other, and think of it this way: dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. Then you'll know they're correct. So this one and this one are opposite. The whites are opposite. These lights are opposite, and these darks. That's what they're calling the darks. Now we're going to sew this one to this one, and we're going to be real careful because we're going to be doing it right here in the seam where these two need to meet. And then I'll fold them over on top of each other. And here is where you're going to nestle them. So you're going to put it together, and then you're going to pin it right in that seam, and then go to the other end and put a pin so it can stay together. I'll put 3 pins in here, then I'll put one right here in the middle, and then we just sew it. That's it. Take it, sew it. Got them both pinned for this one square. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to chain stitch them. And I'm going to have to move that pin because it's right on the corner. Doing a 1/4 inch seam. When you chain stitch, you do not break your thread when you get down to the end of it. You're going to take the next piece of fabric and you're just going to move it along there. Hopefully my seams match now that I've had to take my pins out. We're going to see here in a minute. Take a look at them, make sure they match up there. And they do. Now, don't worry if they do not exactly match, because remember, we're going to be putting that little red square in the middle. Do you remember this? this is actually going to cover everything. So even if they're off a little bit, a lot, they could be off a 1/4 inch. Nobody's going to know it. You'll know it, but nobody else is going to know it. Because when we get done, you can square up this block. Nobody will be the wiser. So let me go ahead and we're going to iron these, and then we're going to put them together and sew them. Make sure that when you iron, you have one of the seams going one direction and the other seam going the other direction so that they will nestle. When you put it together, look at it and make sure it goes dark, light, dark, light, dark, so that you don't have this turned around somehow, because then you won't have your pieces meeting in the middle. So let's just go ahead and we're going to pin them. And I start from the middle and I work my way out when I do my pinning. Now we're going to sew these together. Same way we sewed the other two. Get over to the ironing board and iron it, and then we'll open it up. They both look like when they're finished. Now I did iron because, you know, this will create a lot of bulk, but if you iron it open, this is what I did. All I did was open up this seam right here and went down. Now the very last step is, instead of 8 squares, we only need 2. And now we're going to put our fusible on those. And let me show you what I do. Since my squares are 2.5, I cut these down so they would be smaller. I have a specific rotary cutter just for cutting fusible. So when you adhere this on there, you can see it's going to be smaller, because I don't want any of the sticky residue on my iron. So we're going to go over here to the iron board and I'll show you what we do next. With the wrong size up, I spray it with water. I take off one side of my fusible, and it's the sticky side right here. I iron this, which releases a little bit of steam. I put this on top, push it down, flip it over because it is smaller than my fabric, so I don't have to worry that it's going to come out onto my iron. And yes, it curls. That's what paper does. Do the same thing with the next sheet. Take off the paper, keep the sticky. Go ahead and iron this. Put the paper on it. Flip it upside down. And there we go. And now we're going to go over here to the sewing area, and I'm going to show you what we do next. Okay, so I ironed it, and from there, let's see if I can get my paper off of here. My sticky stay, okay. I ironed it right here. Got a little bit of spray of water on it, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to, I'm trying to think how I want to do it. So I'm going to go caddy corner on the 2 lighter ones and press it down like that. And look at it and think, does it need to go over a little bit more? You can take it off as many times as you want to fix it until you've ironed it. Once you iron it, you're done. It can't be going anywhere then. I think that looks a little bit better. Okay, I'll take it over here to this iron. Press it with the iron. And there's that square. And then do the other one just like that. Same exact process. We're going to take this off. Just let the sticky on here. Do the light. I think that looks good. And then press it. And then I'm going to put the iron to it. I've got it ironed on there. As soon as that cools off, that's permanent. And now what I will do, because I usually wash things that I make, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a stitch around here. You can zigzag it, you can put a blanket stitch, you can put one of those other stitches. It doesn't make any difference. Whatever kind of stitch you'd like to put all the way around there. You can put a button in the middle here. You can put some other kind of patch on it if you want. If you didn't want to put these squares, you could have put a patch. You could have put a Christmas tree patch like this. You could have put a bird, a snowman. It doesn't make any difference what you want to do. That's up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch around here, and I will show you what I'm going to do in case you'd like to do that too. Now in my sewing machine, this stitch is called a blanket stitch. It's not perfect. It's the first time I've used it, but it will hold all those edges. And the back looks like this, and that's what will be on the inside of your quilt. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it on this other one. And all I did was chose that blanket stitch. I mean, not blanket stitch, I'm sorry. That's a feather stitch. Here's my options. So I went down here to the quilting button, down here, and then it gives me all of these. And I chose this one here. And then when I looked up here, that's what it tells me it is. I didn't change the stitch or anything. I kept it exactly what it was on. So it's on a 2.5, just like the regular stitch that we did our seams with. So whatever your machine has, if you have a zigzag, that'll work. This thing right here would work. Any of these stitches will work. And then if I want to go back just to my regular, this is 2 pages of these stitches, but my regular stitches are right here. That's your straight stitch. This is a pretty good looking stitch. Maybe I ought to put that on. I like that one. I just have to adjust the width of it because to me it's too small. So, but see how that changed right there? That's what I'm going to use. It's almost a satin stitch. It's called a stem stitch up there. But I'm going to go ahead and put that on the second one here. First thing I do though, before I start my stitch, because I find that they'll fall out if you don't, is I go ahead and I take a straight stitch and I lock it in. So if I need to, I write it down, but I don't need to because I went to a 3.0 for my width. I kept the length the same. But I'm going to go to a straight stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go forward and backwards just to lock it in. And then when I get done with this stitch, I'll just go ahead and go over the top of it. And of course, it's like a zigzag stitch. You'll see it here in a minute. Alrighty, so and then when you get down to the end, you're just real careful to remember, did you go to the right or did you go to the left? In this case, you want to go to the left, because when I turn it, what I'll do is I'll put my foot down, put my needle up, because I'm watching this little part right here on my foot, which always needs to be coming straight down on this seam here in order for it to line up. And then I put my foot back down, and so it was on the left. And you'll have to practice to learn where your foot falls when you're doing one of these stitches. And then I need to move it over a little bit. And then just keep on coming with it. Towards the tail end of it again. And I'll pull this string over here, which is the tail end of my beginning. Take a look, another stitch here, one more, lift up my needle, move it over, and now I'm going to go ahead and clip this piece of thread here, which is the very beginning piece, and then I'll go ahead and I'll come over across the top of it. And then what I'll do again is I'll go on the left hand side, I will lift up my needle, I will go ahead and change my stitch back to my straight stitch so that I can lock it in again. And then I cut it. And there's what it looks like. Alright. And that's it. Let me set them up here on the design wall so you can take a look at them. Blocks with the stitching on them. There's the runner. And if you had went ahead and got this runner, but you stopped after you made the squares and you decided not to put the red in there and decided to wait for this video, these right here, the way that I did that, that would look really, really good in those blocks. So I hope you liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.